What if I told you that thousands of years ago, civilizations existed that were so powerful, so advanced, that they would make today's superpowers look like children playing with toys? From empires that stretched across 3 continents to civilizations that built monuments we still can't figure out how to replicate today. These ancient powers shaped our world in ways you never imagined. I'm about to take you on a journey through time to reveal the 10 most powerful ancient civilizations that ever existed. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at history the same way again. But before we dive into these incredible civilizations, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're about to explore some mind-blowing historical facts that will leave you speechless. At number 9, the Byzantine Empire, the civilization that refused to die for over 1,000 years. When the mighty Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, everyone thought it was game over. But the Byzantines said, not so fast. They were the eastern half of the Roman Empire, and they kept the Roman dream alive for another 1,000 years until 1453. Think about that for a moment. While Europe was stumbling through the Dark Ages, the Byzantines were thriving with advanced medicine, engineering, and military tactics that wouldn't be matched for centuries. Their secret weapon? Greek fire, a mysterious incendiary weapon that could burn even on water. It was so effective and so secret that to this day, historians still don't know exactly how it was made. Imagine having a weapon so powerful that its very formula becomes one of history's greatest mysteries. The Byzantines controlled the crucial trade routes between Europe and Asia, making Constantinople one of the richest cities in the world. They had heated floors, running water, and hospitals, while Western Europe was still figuring out basic sanitation. But here's the incredible part. They survived the fall of Rome, the rise of Islam, the Crusades, and countless invasions. They were the masters of survival, adapting and evolving for over a millennium. That's not just power, that's immortality in political form. Number 8 takes us to ancient India, the Mauryan Empire, a civilization so advanced they had animal rights laws 2,300 years before anyone else even thought about them. From 322 to 185 BCE, the Mauryans controlled virtually all of the Indian subcontinent. We're talking about 5 million square kilometers and 50 million people. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the entire European Union. But size wasn't their only superpower. Under Emperor Ashoka, they created the world's first welfare state. They built hospitals, not just for people, but for animals too. They had a postal system, a network of roads that connected the entire empire, and even rest houses for travelers. Here's what blows my mind. Ashoka converted to Buddhism after witnessing the carnage of war, and then spread messages of peace and tolerance across his empire through stone edicts. These weren't just suggestions, they were laws carved in stone that promoted religious tolerance, environmental protection, and ethical treatment of all living beings. The Mauryans had a spy network so sophisticated that it would make modern intelligence agencies jealous. They knew everything that was happening in their empire and beyond. They even had diplomatic relations with ancient Greece and Egypt. This was a civilization that combined military might with moral authority, a combination so powerful that their influence shaped Asian philosophy and politics for thousands of years. At number 7, the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the first true superpower in human history. From 550 to 330 BCE, the Persians built an empire so vast it stretched from India to Greece, from Egypt to Central Asia. At its peak, it controlled 44% of the world's population. Let that sink in. Nearly half of all humans alive were Persian subjects. But here's what made them revolutionary. They didn't just conquer, they liberated. While other empires forced their culture and religion on conquered peoples, the Persians said, keep your customs, keep your gods, just pay your taxes and don't rebel. This wasn't weakness, it was genius. By respecting local traditions, they created the most stable multi-ethnic empire in ancient history. They freed the Jewish people from Babylonian captivity, which is why Persian King Cyrus is literally called the Messiah in the Bible. Their infrastructure was mind-blowing. The royal road stretched 2,500 kilometers, with rest stations every 25 kilometers. Messages could travel from one end of the empire to the other in just 7 days, faster than anything Europe would achieve for over 1,000 years. And their military? They had the immortals, an elite force of exactly 10,000 soldiers that never diminished in number. When one died, another immediately took his place. Imagine facing an army that literally couldn't be depleted. The Persians proved that true power comes not from oppression, but from creating a system so beneficial that people want to be part of it. Number 6. The Mongol Empire. The largest contiguous land empire in human history, and quite possibly the most terrifying. From 1206 to 1368, the Mongols conquered more territory than any empire before or since. We're talking 24 million square kilometers. That's 16% of the entire Earth's land surface. They stretched from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean, from Siberia to Southeast Asia. But here's what made them absolutely unstoppable. They turned warfare into a science. While European knights were still charging around in heavy armor, the Mongols were using psychological warfare, superior mobility, and revolutionary tactics that wouldn't be matched for centuries. They had a communication system so advanced that a message could travel 200 miles in a single day. They religiously promoted merit over birth. It didn't matter if you were a peasant or a prince. If you were good at war, you could rise to the top. And their brutality? It was calculated and strategic. They would completely destroy cities that resisted, but spare those that surrendered. Word spread so fast that entire regions would surrender without a fight rather than face Mongol wrath. But here's the twist. Once they conquered you, they were surprisingly tolerant. They promoted trade, protected merchants, and allowed religious freedom. The Mongols connected East and West like never before, creating the first truly global trade network. They proved that sometimes the greatest power comes from being so fearsome that your enemies defeat themselves. At number 5, Ancient Egypt. The civilization that achieved something no other empire ever has. They made themselves immortal. For over 3,000 years, longer than Christianity has existed, Egypt was a major power that influenced the entire ancient world. Think about that, 3,000 years. Most empires barely last 300 years. But longevity wasn't their only superpower. The Egyptians were master builders who created monuments so impressive that we still can't figure out how they did it. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest building in the world for over 3,800 years, longer than any other structure in history. They had advanced medicine, performing brain surgery, and setting broken bones while Europe was still stuck in the Stone Age. They invented paper, perfected embalming, and created a writing system so beautiful that we're still fascinated by hieroglyphs today. Their military dominated the ancient world for millennia. They had composite bows, horse-drawn chariots, and professional armies that could project power across vast distances. They controlled the Nile, the highway of the ancient world, and used it to dominate trade between Africa and the Mediterranean. But perhaps most importantly, they cracked the code of cultural immortality. Even after they lost political power, Egyptian culture continued to influence Greece, Rome, and the entire Western world. We're still obsessed with Egyptian mythology, art, and architecture thousands of years later. The Egyptians proved that true power isn't just about conquest. It's about creating a legacy so compelling that it outlasts empires. Number 4. The Han Dynasty. The civilization that basically invented modern China and changed the world forever. From 206 BCE to 220 CE, the Han Dynasty ruled over 60 million people across 6 million square kilometers. But numbers don't tell the whole story. This was the dynasty that created the foundation of Chinese civilization that still exists today. They gave us paper, the compass, and gunpowder, 3 inventions that literally changed the course of human history. Imagine if one civilization invented the internet, the automobile, and the airplane. That's basically what the Han Dynasty did for their time. But their greatest achievement was the Silk Road, a trade network that connected China to the Mediterranean and beyond. This wasn't just commerce, it was the world's first global communication system. Ideas, technologies, and cultures flowed along these routes, creating connections that shaped civilizations for centuries. Their government was revolutionary too. They created the world's first true meritocracy, a system where government positions went to the most qualified people, not just the richest or most well-connected. They had standardized currency, measurements, and even writing systems across their vast empire. And their military? They had crossbows that could pierce armor, cavalry units that could strike anywhere in their empire, and strategic thinking that was centuries ahead of their enemies. They expanded Chinese influence deep into Central Asia and established a buffer zone that protected China for generations. The Han Dynasty proved that lasting power comes from creating systems so effective that they become the foundation for an entire civilization. At number 3, the Greek city-states. Small in size but massive in influence, they literally invented the modern world. Here's what makes the Greeks absolutely incredible. They were never really a single empire. They were hundreds of independent city-states that were constantly fighting each other. And yet, they changed human civilization more than any other ancient power. Democracy, philosophy, science, theater, the Olympics, all Greek inventions. They didn't just conquer territory, they conquered human thought itself. Every time you vote, think critically, or watch a movie, you're participating in Greek inventions. But don't think they were just philosophers sitting around thinking deep thoughts. Greek military might was legendary. At Marathon, 10,000 Athenians defeated 25,000 Persians. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans held off hundreds of thousands of Persian troops. Their secret? They invented the phalanx, a military formation so effective that it dominated warfare for centuries. But more importantly, they were fighting for something bigger than conquest. They were fighting for freedom, for the right to govern themselves. Alexander the Great took Greek culture and spread it across 3 continents in just 13 years. Greek became the language of science and philosophy. Greek art and architecture influenced every civilization that came after. The Greeks proved that true power doesn't come from the size of your army or the wealth of your treasury. It comes from the power of your ideas. And Greek ideas are still ruling the world today. At number 2, the Roman Empire. The civilization that came closest to ruling the entire known world. For over 500 years, Rome was the superpower of the ancient world. At its peak, it controlled 5 million square kilometers and 65 million people. That's roughly 21% of the world's population at the time. But size wasn't what made Rome unstoppable. It was their system. They created the most efficient military machine in history, the Roman legions. These weren't just soldiers. They were engineers, builders, and administrators who could conquer a territory and then govern it effectively. Roman engineering was so advanced that we're still using their concrete today, 2,000 years later. They built roads so well that many are still in use, aqueducts that supplied fresh water to cities hundreds of miles away, and the Colosseum, which remains one of the most impressive buildings ever constructed. But here's what made them truly powerful. They turned conquest into citizenship. Conquered peoples could become Roman citizens, serve in the legions, and even become emperors. They created the first truly multi-ethnic superpower. Roman law forms the basis of legal systems worldwide. Latin became the language of education, science, and religion for over 1,000 years. Roman military tactics influenced warfare well into the modern era. They proved that ultimate power comes from creating a system so attractive and effective that conquered peoples want to become part of it, rather than resist it. And at number 1, the Babylonian Empire, the civilization that literally wrote the book on power. Under Hammurabi and later Nebuchadnezzar II, Babylon became the cultural and political center of the ancient world. They gave us the first written legal code, advanced mathematics, and astronomy so accurate they could predict eclipses. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The city itself was so magnificent that it became synonymous with ultimate power and wealth. But here's why they're number 1. They created the template that every empire after them followed. Centralized government, written laws, professional armies, and monumental architecture, all Babylonian innovations. They proved that true power lies not in temporary conquest, but in creating systems and ideas that shape civilization itself. These 10 civilizations didn't just rule their time, they shaped our time. From the democracy we cherish to the laws we follow, from the roads we travel to the buildings we admire, their influence surrounds us every day. Which ancient civilization impressed you the most?